I just went 1 month on $100 in groceries, and I didn't do a full restock beforehand. I just kind of went with whatever we had on hand and decided to go with that and shop for $25 a week in fresh produce, milk, and eggs and butter. So I want to share some of my tips and tricks on how to save money on groceries and how I like to do the shopping, typically $100 a week. So let's get started. I'm going to show you a few tips. So we're a family of 4, so I'm going to give you the best tips and tricks that I can think of that can work for any size family and pretty much any budget. So just take what you can use and go from there, because it's not all going to work for you, but I'm just going to give you all my tips and then you can use what you can use. So number 1 is shop the ads. That's probably the most important one for me, because I will just base my entire meal planning for the week off of whatever is on sale. So I just download the apps for the local grocery stores that are closest to me, or sometimes they'll deliver it in my mailbox or on my driveway so I can look at all of the deals. So if I see that meat is going to be on sale for $2 a pound, I'll plan to buy extra and just stock up and fill my freezer. Or if there are certain veggies, I'll make sure that I make meals with those veggies that week. Next, meal plan. So I just mentioned it a minute ago, but I do meal plan every single week when I'm looking to actually have a budget. So I usually take something like this, like a food journal or just a piece of paper, and write down every single day of the week and all of the meals. So that includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I can figure out if my dinner is going to have leftovers for lunch the next day, or if I'm going to need to make something separate for lunch, or if we're going to have enough items for breakfast, or if I'm going to have to plan to make something for that. Next is to get familiar with the stores that are in your area and figure out which ones have the cheapest prices for things that you actually buy. So the best way to do that is probably to download the app and look at the weekly ads, or you can physically walk into the store and just check the prices, or even just go shopping there and see and compare. Once you get familiar, you can see what the prices really look like in your area and what your budget should kind of look like. On the note of writing things down, always write a list. So on my food journal here that I write down my meal plan in actually has my grocery list for the week as well. It's just easier for me that way. And don't go into the store when you're hungry. Make sure that you eat beforehand. Even if you buy a $5 Starbucks sandwich, that's going to save you at least $50 in random things that you pull off the shelf because you're starving. So make sure you don't veer from your list either. Once you write it down, you cannot buy anything off the list, because that way you'll have your prices all there on the list, the total will be there, and you'll already know what you should be spending, so you know that you can't stray. Next, you're going to want to figure out a realistic budget that actually fits for you and your family. So the best way that I recommend doing that is to download a budget tracking app. That's the easiest way in my opinion. And something like Mint that's free or something like that. I'll post a link in the description to the one that I use, because it also is on the computer. But you can find a bunch of them that are free, or you could just write it down on paper if that's easiest for you. But once you figure out how much you're actually spending on groceries and takeout and things like that, you can actually make a realistic budget that you think you might be able to follow. Don't forget about clearance items. When you see something that goes on sale that's something you will eat or something that you love, don't pass it by, but don't overstock. So let's say that the pasta you normally love is $2 a pound, but it's on sale for 50 cents. So you're just gonna buy 4, just $2 worth. So that way you don't overdo it, you don't overstock, and you're not gonna waste anything, and nothing's gonna get expired before you use it. Speaking of coupons, don't always go with the BOGOs unless it's something you're actually going to buy and use before it gets expired. So just keep an eye out for that. Sometimes if it's buy one, get one, and you're throwing one out anyway, it's definitely not a good deal. Don't forget to compare the store brands to the name brands. Sometimes they're cheaper and sometimes they're not. So you have to compare before actually making a purchase. There's also several sites where you can get cash back, like Ibotta. And for me personally, I only use that one, but there are several out there. This one called Ibotta, you actually get actual cash back, not points. So for me, it just makes more sense because I don't like to figure out the whole points thing. It just shows me things that I normally buy. I can actually scan it in store and see if there's a coupon available, and it just loads the money right there. So sometimes I've gotten, Annie's mac and cheese for 30 cents each just using Ibotta. So something that I always check, and I usually like to scroll through it the night before I go shopping too and add any of those deals so I know what to look for when I get there. If you ever run out of ideas on what to cook and you're just not sure, you don't have much on hand, I usually use sites like Supercook and just put in whatever I have on hand or what I want to use, and it searches the entire internet and finds recipes for things that I'm actually going to want to cook. So I use things like that when I'm stuck, or if I'm not sure if I have everything I need for a meal. It just gives me a lot more ideas, and sometimes I can just make recipes based off inspiration. Speaking of inspiration, learn how to make substitutions. For instance, you can use Greek yogurt instead of sour cream in some things, or even applesauce instead of eggs and baking. Learning all these substitutions will help you make more meals and stop going to the store as much for just one thing. If you're really busy during the week and you really don't have time to actually cook dinner, I highly recommend doing some sort of meal prepping in advance. So just pick one day where you have about 3 hours free to just put together all the meals for the week, at least for dinners or whatever your busiest meal is where you can't seem to figure out what to cook. Then put it in your freezer so that way when it's time to cook, you can just pull it out, either put it in your crock pot, your slow cooker, your Instant Pot, or just straight in the oven and it's ready to go. On that note, I'll also have a couple of freezer meals down below in the description for you to start. See if there's a way if you can grow some of your own fruits, vegetables, and herbs. Even if you have a small indoor garden, a little bit can go a long way from you having to go to the store to pick up 1 or 2 things, and sometimes you can make a substitution from your garden. I highly recommend challenging yourself to use everything you have every 6 months or so. So what that means is just not grocery shopping for 2 weeks or a month, or just giving yourself a small budget, maybe $20, $25 a week to buy fresh produce, milk. That's how we went a month with only buying $100 in groceries. Is I wrote everything down and I just made a meal plan for 4 weeks, and things did change along the way, but I only spent $25 a week on milk, eggs, butter, fresh produce, and that was pretty much it. I did buy a little bit of dairy like yogurt and things like that here and there, but all under $25. So I highly recommend looking at that, because sometimes when you're forced to think outside the box, there's a lot more meals that you can actually make. And sometimes you can even just have a snacky lunch or breakfast for dinner, or getting creative like that. So I highly recommend doing that. If you have your own tips and tricks, please put them in the comments down below so everybody can read them and so I can read them too and get some more tips. And please give me a little thumbs up if you like this video and subscribe to see more. I'm always posting new recipes. I try to put my grocery hauls up and so you can see how much I'm spending. And if you need anything else, just feel free to ask me some questions down below. Have a wonderful day.